One of the most common questions we get as book influencers, because we're such a big deal, is where to start with literature. People say, I want to get into literature. I want to get into more serious books. Where should we begin? So today on the Life on Books podcast, that is what we're talking about. I'm your host, Tony. With me, as always, is Andy, a.k.a. Metafictional Meathead. Andy, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Tony.
Fantastic. So we're going to start with our weekly reading update. It's been a little bit. So what have you been reading?
Yeah. Nothing. Well, one new book. I started Middle C by William Gass for the book club.
Fantastic.
I've read 6 or 7 chapters, I think. I don't know. A little bit more than half of week one's schedule.
Cool. They must be short chapters then. I haven't cracked it open
They're
yet.
about 10 pages each.
Okay.
And it's definitely easier than The Tunnel.
That's good.
And I'm finding it, the density and complexity of the writing is probably about the same as Omensetter's Luck.
Sure.
Maybe a little bit easier, but since it's shorter chapters where Omensetter's Luck was like really long ones and definitely had that like stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
At least so far, Middle C has not had that.
Cool.
So it's just been reading a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I'm into it. It's obviously still early on in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I dig it. Read a little bit more of The Combinations by Louis Armand. I still have no idea what's going on. It's getting a little bit less fuzzy. I'm kind of starting to put the pieces together.
Nice.
Obviously it's about 900 pages, so there's quite a bit of setup before things start to kind of come together.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of thinking about it yesterday because I'm 220 something pages in, and I had to kind of remind myself that like it wasn't until about that point that things with Infinite Jest started to click.
Is it about the same length?
I think so. I mean, obviously, Infinite Jest is almost 1,100 pages, but a good bit of that is the footnotes or the endnotes.
Right.
And, The Combinations doesn't have that, so the actual text is probably about the same. But that's been fun. Still trying to work out like if it's really like if it's good literature or if it's just kind of like maximal experimentation for the sake of maximal experimentation.
Love it.
But I'm into it, and then chipping away at Gesell Dome by Guillermo Saccomanno from Open Letter. That one's cool because it's kind of sort of vignettes. There's no real like chapter breaks, but there's spacing between each little vignette, so it's kind of easy to read like 5 or 6 pages, and then kind of put it down for the day or whatever.
Yeah.
But and there's kind of multiple different like narratives going on. It's about this this kind of like Argentinian villa that's really popular during tourist season, and then kind of a ghost town during the off season.
Mm-hmm.
So at least contextually, there are parts of it that remind me of growing up on the Cape. Not so much the seedy underbelly and crime portion of things that are going on, but just that kind of like, for the next 8 months, there's going to be nothing going on, and everyone's going to be kind of trying to get by until the busy season.
The life of a vacation town.
Yeah. But it's cool because you have, there's kind of your kind of main characters in the town and their kind of story, and then there's just other little things happening going on. So there's kind of a couple different narratives kind of weaving in and out.
Cool.
And then I've still been reading, I haven't read much of Saibo, whatever the hell it is, There Below by Krasznahorkai.
Yeah.
I think I read one story.
It's short stories?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Earlier this week. And that's been good. I haven't really picked it up this week, mostly because I wanted to get caught up on the other 3 that I mentioned. And since that one's short stories, if I don't read it for a week, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not missing or not losing narrative threads.
Right.
So that's everything.
Cool. That's it, huh?
Just $4.
So since we last spoke, I finished Ask the Dust by John Fante. I still going through Moby Dick. I took a little bit of a break from it because I was just so busy with work. About 2/3 of the way through that. I read The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon.
Go. Finally.
It was good.
You popped your cherry.
On The Crying of Lot 49.
On Pynchon.
Well, it's not my first Pynchon.
Maybe you read half of Gravity's Rainbow. That doesn't count.
And Inherent Vice.
Oh, you did read Inherent Vice. That's
Yeah.
right. Okay. Mea culpa.
I thought it was much better than Inherent Vice.
Yes.
I think like it's funny because a lot of people say to like start with Inherent Vice with Pynchon if you want to like dip your toes in something a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I actually think this is probably a better choice. I think the writing was a little tighter.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it wasn't that difficult of a read. Having read Inherent Vice and now reading The Crying of Lot 49, there you can see like they're both very Pynchon-esque.
Yes. Yes. I think Inherent Vice is good if you're worried about the difficulty.
Yeah.
Lot 49 certainly has its complexity, but compared to the rest of his, difficult books, Gravity's Rainbow, Mason and Dixon, Against the Day,
Yeah.
it's certainly more accessible.
Yeah.
And what I like about Lot 49, and maybe this will be a little bit more clear to you if it's not already, but if you get back to like Gravity's Rainbow and things like that, it kind of has like everything that he thematically covers over the breadth of his whole work. Like you kind of get a snapshot of like the big picture of what he's trying to say.
He mentions V2 rockets in there.
Yeah,
so.
But as far as like, the just interconnectedness of everything, the systems of control, like all of this stuff, you kind of get a snapshot of like what he wants to say.
Yeah, I think that it's become kind of clear to me like what Pynchon does. And because I found this to be true with Inherent Vice, and I found this to be true. I mean, I didn't finish Gravity's Rainbow, but I read quite a bit of it. So it's like in the beginning, you always think like, oh, this isn't too bad. This isn't too hard.
Right.
And then like, it's kind of the opposite of how a lot of novels are written. Like in Infinite Jest is a great example where in the beginning, there's like a lot of stuff and you're like, what is happening? And then by the end, it kind of all comes together.
Right.
Where like Pynchon novels are almost the opposite.
Yes.
You feel in the beginning like I understand what's going on, and then you get deeper and deeper, and then you kind of realize like I have absolutely no idea what's happening right now.
And that's obviously, like I said, he does that very well. Does that very, very well in Gravity's Rainbow, and it's this kind of idea that I think he approaches in all of his works, where he's simultaneously digging deeper into a topic or a theme, and as he's getting deeper, he's also widening out.
Yeah.
So
yes,
you get
correct.
deeper and wider at the same time.
Absolutely.
So it seems like, oh, we're really focusing on this idea, and then boom, it's like this huge net covering everything, and you have to kind of make sense of what's going on.
You know what it reminds me of? You ever seen those art pieces that people do where they'll be like paint in a bucket and they'll spin it and then it'll like swing, and then the painting gets like bigger and bigger and more like complex?
Yes.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yes.
And I don't know, there's probably a term for that.
Yeah. And that's, kind of what I have tried to like explain to people, and maybe done a poor job of it when I've been like, not understanding is kind of the point.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like so much of real life is like that.
Yes.
If you're having, it could be even like personal problems, not just like someone's, bugging my mail, like
right.
You could just be having like an interpersonal problem with someone, and you try to, sit on it and reflect on it and dig a little bit deeper into what's happening.
Yeah.
And the deeper and deeper you get into that kind of reflection on what is going on, there's more things, more things start to click of like, oh, this could be happening. This could be happening. This could be happening.
Yeah. There's a lot of misdirection intentionally put in there.
Yes.
And I think like when we talked on the episode with Seth about postmodernism, and we were talking about how like postmodern writing is a lot about like just getting the reader to experience something rather than like telling them what the experience is. That is like the distinct feeling I got reading this book.
Yeah.
It's like he wants to distract you to make the reader feel distracted, not because there's like some inherent meaning in the distraction
it's kind of, again, something I talked about on that episode of with Seth, excuse me, where a lot of those postmodern novels that we all love, or at least he and I love, are you're kind of sorting through that overwhelming influx of information
Yeah.
to find out what is important, what's just noise.
Yeah.
How do you make sense of what's important? And then, oh, wait, maybe something that I thought was just noise, you know, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
Cool. All right. Let's get down to business. We're just going to cover 5 books that we think are good for people dipping their toes into big L literature. So why don't you go first?
Before we jump in, I'm going to add a couple of, not caveats, but just throw some things out there.
Sure.
Obviously, there's more than 5 books, or between the two of us, 10 books.
Yeah. I have some honorable mentions.
Yeah. That you can start with. Something I've recommended before and will recommend again. If you want to jump into reading more capital L literature, Google the top 100 books of all time. That's what I did. Read through the list. Pick a few out that sound interesting to you and read them and then go from there.
Yeah.
I think of the books that I brought, at least 4 of them will be on probably every one of those lists.
Oh, cool.
Or most of those greatest books of all time, whatever type lists.
Yeah.
So these are just kind of ones that I kind of helped me get into. At least 3 of them are, and then 2 I think are others that are a little bit more specific, kind of entries into more I don't know, periods of literature or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And
mine's all 20th century.
Yeah.
Yours isn't, but mine is.
Yeah. Three of the 5 I
Yeah.
brought are 20th century, but kind of spread out. And then another thing, because we're going to get comments on it, so I'm going to address it now.
Nice.
I don't have any women in my list.
Oh boy, we're canceled.
So here's the thing. I have read female authors, women authors, whatever. I'm not going to get canceled because I said female.
Sure.
I've read books written by women. If you go up and you look up any of those top 100 books that I, of all time, there's going to be books by women on there. The Bronte sisters, Emily Dickinson, Virginia Woolf, so on and so forth. I have not read any of those. I think Clarice Lispector is great. I don't think she's probably the place to start if you want to get into serious literature.
Sure.
I've read Juna Barnes. I think you could say the same thing. She's great. She's kind of difficult. Maybe not the place to start if you don't have somewhat of an understanding of modernist literature. And there's probably better places to start if that's where, the period you want to go under.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you may crucify me now, internet.
Love it.
Okay. So my first book, one that I read in high school and then read again as a young adult and absolutely loved, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoyevsky.
The Crime of Punishment 49.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of contradictory given that one of the last episodes we recorded, I talked about how I think
We both talked.
and said that Dostoyevsky is overrated.
Yeah.
But
that doesn't mean good. Not good.
Not
That's the
good.
thing. It just means that people rank it higher than maybe what it deserves.
Right.
But it's all subjective.
But one of the things that's great about an author potentially being, quote, overrated is there's going to be a bajillion people talking about him.
Yeah. Lots of stuff to dig into.
Lots and lots and lots of guidance and analysis and criticism and everything out there.
Yeah.
So if you're reading part of Crime and Punishment and something doesn't make sense, or there's a passage that you really like and you want to dig deeper into it, it's going to be pretty easy to find someone talking about it.
Yeah.
So you kind of have that it's easy to do a little bit of the between the lines reading versus something like Lot 49 is popular enough that there's going to be discourse available, but much less than Crime and Punishment.
Yeah.
So you'll probably be able to find the answers that you're looking for easier with something like Crime and Punishment. I didn't particularly care for the brothers Karamazov. I didn't finish it, but I think everything I just said about Crime and Punishment applies to that as well.
Yeah.
If you have that, you don't have Crime and Punishment, read the Brothers K.
Yeah. This is not exactly related to this book, but something that you just said made me think of this. And I think I'm maybe kind of known for my tangents. That's my MO. So I'll go into it.
Your MO?
Our MO. I've heard a lot of feedback recently from people. I'm pro people making book content online because like it's kind of like be the change you want to see in the world type of thing.
Right.
Where it's like it sucks that like we're becoming illiterate as a society, and I want like people to participate in pushing back on that.
Yeah.
But one of the comments I've been getting from people is like, "Oh, I don't think I have anything like to add to the conversation or unique to say." And you take a book like this, which is 150 or more years old. This was probably written in like the 1860s, right?
Go find out. Okay.
It might not have the original publication date in there.
Yeah.
So we'll just call it mid to late 1800s. We'll just say hundreds of years old.
I'll look it up just because I'm curious. You keep talking.
And it's like people are continually having conversations about this book. And so your thoughts to you might seem pedestrian because they're your thoughts and you've lived with them your entire life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But like, I think this podcast is like a good example. You and I hop on here and talk about stuff that to me doesn't seem like all that exciting, but like people are like, oh, that's cool. I enjoyed that conversation. So,
Right.
You know, I think everyone has a fairly unique perspective. And so don't be afraid to, I mean, we'll just take a step back from like posting content, but like even reading a book like this, don't be afraid to jump into the conversation and add to it, you know?
Right.
That's kind of the cool thing is like, we will continue to change as our cultures change. And so then we're going to look at these books through different lenses, which I think is cool. So,
yeah. 1867, by the way.
Oh, that's close. Well, I did say 1860s. So
you said mid 1800s.
Yeah.
So
okay. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode. I wanted to take a quick moment to ask you a little bit of a weird question. Do you think it's possible for a book club to change someone's life? Now, if you had asked me this question maybe 2 years ago, I probably would have laughed and said no, but my answer has now changed. You've probably heard me plug our book club before. It's the main way that I support everything that we do here with all the content and the podcasts and all that. But as the club founder, obviously, I'm going to say nothing but good things about it. So I wanted to give an opportunity for our club members to share their experiences. So I've linked a post below where you can go check out their responses. And to be honest, I was very humbled, very blown away. And it just reaffirmed my belief in this mission that we can make a big difference in someone's life individually and a big impact on the reading community. And I cannot stress enough that this community is so much more than just reading one book a month together and talking about that one individual book. There's so much more going on there. People are making lifelong relationships and friendships there. We're discussing so much beyond books, and we're talking about books a lot too. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, check the link below. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And now back to the episode. So I'll give a little preface to my stack as well. I tried to pick books that maybe you wouldn't just hear about in other places, because obviously, like that's that's already out there. And I tried to kind of rank these in what I would say is order of difficulty. Mm-hmm. And so the first one, unfortunately, is a book that we've probably heard us talk about a lot, which is Hard Rain Falling by Don Carpenter. And the reason why I picked this book, first and foremost, it's a fantastic book.
absolutely.
I think it's super easy to read,
Agreed.
but it checks a couple boxes for me that I think would be like a good place for people to start. Number one, it does have a ton of like social critique, which I think is a big part of like the difference between maybe like more entertainment-based genre fiction versus like serious literature. And secondly, even though at this point, like we've talked about it a lot, and this book has gained some popularity online as of late, it's still kind of like an author that you probably just wouldn't know of if you were just like a casual reader.
Right.
So I think it's cool that, you can kind of get those hipster cool points by like reading like, ooh, I've read Don Carpenter.
Right. Right.
But no one's going to pick this book up and like really struggle with it if you've graduated high school.
Agreed.
So, 1966 is when this came out, so 20th century book, as all of mine are. But it's just a really fun book. Well, a really engaging book and an important book, but an easy book to read. So.
Yeah. I'm going to shuffle my stack around because I see that we have a duplicate, and I'm just going to jump right to it.
Okay.
I have brought White Noise by Don DeLillo.
I thought that you might.
Which I think is a great one. I brought this because, it came out, 85?
Yes,
Yeah,
1985, 85. Yep.
I mean, it's fairly easy to read. It's accessible. And I think it's a great entry point if you kind of want to dip your toes into the whole postmodern waters.
Yes.
See if that type of genre or type of writing, type of novels, fiction, whatever, is going to be your jam or something you can kind of vibe with. If you read White Noise and don't like it, especially, it kind of has much more of that irreverent, absurd, kind of aloof style than certainly any other book I have with me today. If you don't really jive with that, it's probably not going to be, you might not really like Pynchon. You might not really vibe with Wallace. Some of the earlier stuff like Gaddis, you might not really vibe with.
There were actually parts of Lot 49 that I felt like inspired DeLillo for White Noise.
Yeah.
It gave me the similar vibe.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like if you'll get a sense of how you'll jive with other authors that DeLillo typically gets roped in with. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not something that'll be clear like right away. If you're kind of on the fence about White Noise, like there were parts of it you liked, parts of it you didn't like, you can read more DeLillo or more, start with something like Lot 49.
Yeah. They're both, I would like almost cartoonish in a way.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in like a negative or derogatory way.
Right.
It's like, we've talked about this before, kind of like lowbrow humor.
Yes.
Like covering up.
Well, so there's a line in Lot 49. It's the high magic of low puns, where they kind of use these colloquial, lowbrow, cartoonish type scenarios.
Almost slapstick.
Yeah. To kind of make a bigger point about society or what have you.
Yeah. The one line that always sticks out to me from White Noise is when he's at the doctor being, examined to see if he's been like exposed to the radiation or whatever. And the doctor's asking about his sleep and he goes tossing and turning and he's like, just tossing.
Yeah. So I think that's, it's a good entry point to kind of get a sense of if you'll like more mid to late 20th century stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that you might have White Noise on here, but I put it in my pile anyway. But I don't like to ask you ahead of time because it's fun for me to see what you picked.
Right. Likewise.
So I'll throw in a curveball, one that I don't have in my stack here, but a book that I was on the fence about including, but didn't go with it. And it's from a woman. It's The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. I would say it's probably even easier to read than Hard Rain Falling. So if I had put that in my stack, it probably would have been the first one. But it's interesting because Pearl is American, but she was actually raised in China. She was the daughter of like missionaries. And so the book is very heavily inspired by her real life kind of experiences. And so, I think both of us are, like we've talked about before, a little bit hesitant to read stuff by like some dude that like is from Chicago writing about like a kid in the Middle East. I mean, it can be done.
Right.
But it's just a little bit
not interesting.
It's just not that interesting. So I think it added a really unique perspective. And the book is kind of about like the generational struggle of a Chinese peasant family. And again, some really interesting cultural themes, social critique. There's a lot of stuff in there about like misogyny. There's some political stuff in there. Super easy read, pretty brutal book, but just well written. And I thought, was a good place to start. And again, like even though she's a Nobel Prize winner, it's a name that kind of is a little bit forgotten by history. People who are big readers will be like, what are you talking about? Pro Bucks, everyone knows Pro Buck, but like maybe
you're not a big reader.
Maybe this is a poor barometer, but like if I'm not seeing it on social media, if it's not on social media, it doesn't really exist in the cultural zeitgeist of the community. I hate to say that, but that's kind of the reality we're living in. So,
you're not wrong. We kind of have created this almost, echo chamber kind of has a negative connotation to it, but like you tend to see people talking about very similar books, if not the same books.
For sure.
Which isn't always a bad thing.
Well, I think one of the comments we got on our Q&A a few weeks ago is a good example. Somebody had asked, like, why is everyone reading Moby Dick right now?
Yeah, Moby Dick is a great book.
Right.
And if I see someone, obviously I was one of those people, like reading, and I got reading it, and I got invited to do a group read. But, if someone sees, like, 6 people have been posting about, they've been reading Moby Dick.
Yeah.
I should pick it up. I've had it on my shelf for years. And then they hey, I started reading this, and then you see it, and then just pretty much what happened. I bullied you into reading it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
It's kind of like social media functioning in the way we were promised it was supposed to.
Right.
It was supposed to be this force for good, community building.
Right.
Bringing people together, connecting people, but obviously that's such a small part of what it is now.
Right. Yeah. But if you are kind of like, I want to get more into reading, you kind of find your way into that like online book space, especially, like if you fast forward 6 weeks from now, everybody and their mother is going to be posting about Schadenfreude.
Right.
Probably myself included.
In our little circle then, right? Yeah, for sure.
People are going to be posting about Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
Probably not a great place to start if you haven't picked up a book since high school.
Yes.
Not many people are going to be posting about The Good Earth.
Right.
Probably a good place to start if you haven't picked up a book since high school.
Definitely. I would call it, maybe freshman or sophomore level writing.
Right.
Or,
which is the whole point of this episode. And what I was saying before, like, go Google that list of best books. Go see what's out, on the Goodreads has tons of like user generated lists.
I want to backtrack slightly to Crime and Punishment.
Sure.
I would take a little bit of time with a book like that's been translated multiple times. I can't make a recommendation because I'm just not that big on Russian lit, but like do a little bit of research on which translation you should read. Some of them are going to be easier than others. And what I think a lot of people don't think about with translated works from a long time ago is like, if you were translating that book into English for the UK in the 1860s, the English it's translated into is going to be like 1860s British English.
Right.
And there's really there's not necessarily a reason why you have to read that particular translation. And you see this a lot with like the Stoic stuff, Marcus Aurelius and all that. Like people are sometimes reading these old translations with lots of thous and these, and you know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to read a translation like that. So just do a little bit of legwork to figure out which might be the best translation for you to read with any translated work that's
absolutely
been translated multiple times throughout different time periods.
Right. On the flip side of that, if you're just getting into reading, don't lose the forest through the trees. Don't be so, I want to start reading, and I heard Crime and Punishment is a great place to start, but I got to figure out which translation is the best to read. Do a little bit of legwork.
Yeah, for sure.
But don't be so paralysis by analysis that you never actually pick up the book.
I agree.
So, okay.
What do you got next?
My next pick, another one that is very near and dear to my heart. I've said it time and time again, was like probably the number one book that kind of led me into being like, oh, wow, books are cool. Books are great. And can be enjoyable to read and not just something you grit your teeth through because your English teacher told you to read it. And that is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. It's probably one of my favorite books ever. I've read it twice. I'm definitely due for a reread because it's been years now.
Yeah, when did we read it together? Like 2019, 2020? It's been at least 5 years.
Yeah. I think it was It had to have been while I was interning because it wasn't while I
Yeah.
was full time.
Yeah, I think you're right. So that would have been 2019.
2019, 2020, something like that. So yeah, it's been like 5 years since I've read it. But just an incredibly written book.
Yeah.
Very emotionally effective and moving. And then, you know, also has a lot to say.
Yes.
Thematically and just about society and families and things like that. And along the lines of what I said about Crime and Punishment. People have been talking about it for 100 years now.
Yeah.
There's going to be plenty of discourse about it.
Yes.
If you want to look a little bit deeper into it. Certainly as far as like the writing goes and what's happening narratively, I think it's easier to understand than any of Dostoyevsky's work.
Definitely.
But again, if you want to like, okay, I know what's happening narratively, but I want to understand a little bit more of the themes that Steinbeck is discussing, hop on Google.
Yeah.
You'll find the answer.
I would add to that, really any Steinbeck is a good choice.
Yes.
All of his books, in my opinion, are very approachable.
Mm-hmm.
All of his books are packed with deeper themes.
Mm-hmm.
You could literally close your eyes, you know, throw a dart,
Right.
and whatever Steinbeck it hits.
Right. I mean, how many of us were assigned The Pearl or Of Mice and Men or both in high school?
Yeah. In high school, I read Of Mice and Men, Cannery Row, Tortilla Flat.
Yeah. I mean, I read that in high school.
Yeah.
East of Eden in high school.
Yeah.
So,
The one challenging thing about East of Eden is its length.
yeah.
So if you aren't used to reading longer works, I do encourage people to start with something a little bit shorter. But
Certainly.
if you've been reading long books and you just want to tackle something with more serious themes,
Right.
not a bad choice.
But also, you know, if you are going to be getting more into capital L literature, a lot of the great books that you're going to want to read are longer books.
Yeah.
And this is as far as length goes, this is a good one to start with because, well, it's long. It's not difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, like I remember there being long stretches that I just didn't want to put it down.
for sure.
Like it's not like it's a slog
Yeah.
where you read like 10 pages and it's been like, holy shit, that took me 2 hours. Like
On its surface, it actually doesn't even sound like that interesting of a book. It's like about two families in
Yeah.
the Southwest America. Like,
I kind of want to read it now. Like
yeah. That's my copy of White Noise. One thing that we didn't talk about, I think, or we kind of touched on it. DeLillo, going back to White Noise, really gets lumped in with those like challenging, really serious American writers, the Pynchon, Wallace, Gass, McCarthy. I think White Noise is easier than like 99% of that stuff. So
one thing that, and I said this in the Discord the other day, that I think is a good way to kind of view DeLillo's place in that whole sphere of postmodernists is he's the old man on the balcony
yeah,
drinking his coffee, looking down at the kids in the street. What the hell are they doing?
yeah,
And, he takes from that, like, he's not just like an old man yelling at the clouds,
yeah,
but you kind of get a little bit more of an introspective bird's eye view look at like what's going on at this time in America or even the world, like what people are writing in this kind of new and unique way.
yeah.
Which is why I think he's good.
Well, we almost had a Haga cameo with some barking. It's been a while since we had one of those. So my next pick is Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. This is actually the only Morrison I've read. We read it for our book club, which makes every reading experience better. So go check the link down below about the club.
Seamless plug.
I wanted to include Toni Morrison today for a few reasons. Number one, I think the book is very well written. There's some really interesting and cool stuff in here, just beautiful writing at times. Definitely some deeper themes, which is a theme of this conversation today. I would say a step up in complexity from the books I've already mentioned. Maybe not quite to the level of Dostoyevsky, but certainly a little bit elevated. You have to pay a little bit more attention.
Yeah.
And there's some things that are that are not on the page, so you're not being handheld through the whole thing.
Right.
But also, I think she's a hugely influential writer, particularly in American literature. So I thought it was important to include an author like that.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. Makes total sense. Total sense for this list. And I kind of forgot about it when I was making mine.
Yeah. Well, we do these last minute. So.
Yeah. But, going back to what I said earlier, I'm sure if you Googled top 100 books of all time, you're going to see some Morrison, whether it's Song of Solomon or Beloved. Probably going to be one of those two.
Beloved is her most popular book, as we've discussed at length.
Yeah.
But I've heard Beloved is a challenging read.
It is.
So I didn't, and I haven't read it, so I can't.
Even
I can't
plot-wise, like it's dark.
Yeah.
Man, it's tough.
But it's also got some like magical realism in it, right? I believe.
Think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I read it in high school, and I did.
You
not,
didn't love it.
I didn't even like it.
Yeah.
But I think part of that was just I didn't really like the way it was taught.
Yeah.
We talked about this with Song of Solomon when we did our episode on that. Like, certainly with Morrison, there's a lot between the lines, especially it's themes that have to do with the plight of African American citizens, which, as a white guy from New England, it's very easy to miss those if you're not actively looking for them and kind of have like a deeper understanding of what's going on. And I just remember feeling like, at least when I was in high school, and part of this could have just been that I was an angsty teenager that had already checked out and kind of had senioritis. I just felt like instead of the teacher being like, well, here's what she was trying to say, like, let me teach you, let me educate you on what Morrison's point was. It was like, well, how did you miss that?
Oof. Not good.
And, I don't want that to sound like I had a terrible English teacher. I had a great English teacher. So just one of the struggles I had with Beloved and why I kind of have mixed feelings about the book. One of these days I should probably reread it. So I do think that is something that, you should be aware of if you're going to read Morrison. Because even when I read Song of Solomon, was it earlier this year, end of last year?
Really,
there were things that I missed. And I remember, a couple of days before we recorded our episode on it, I listened to another podcast where they had I think she's a university professor or something, like someone that has done more scholarly work into Morrison, and just talking about the book. I was like, there were so many things that I either like missed or wouldn't have thought of or whatever. And like I was saying, I think part of that just has to do with my own personal life experiences.
Yeah.
Not that I relate anymore to Crime and Punishment.
Yeah, what are you trying to say here, Andy?
A Russian peasant killing an old woman with an axe. But just some of the stuff that Morrison covers is very specific to the plight of African Americans in the United States and their kind of the history of that group of people. And if you're not, maybe you know something about the history, but you don't have that experience of growing up as a young black person in a town that's kind of still segregated, still has a lot of like racial tension.
Yeah.
You might miss some of the things she's trying to say.
Yeah.
Certainly doesn't mean it's not important or worthwhile to read. But if you listen to this episode and you're like, I'm going to start reading some real books, and that's the first one you grab, like, don't take it the wrong way if you miss some things.
Yeah, and again, a seamless plug here. I mean, that's like the beauty of the book club.
Yes.
Is we have the Discord chats. So as you're reading, you can chat with other readers about what you're seeing. And then we do the weekly calls, which are honestly, maybe this is just my lack of a social life, but they're the highlight of my week. It's just fun to chat with other people about the book you're reading in a more in-depth conversation.
Yeah.
I'm getting so much more out of the books because people just notice different things, or interpret things differently and provide a different perspective. And then the cool thing too is, and this is going to take years for me to like kind of reach this goal, but like ultimately I want like the Patreon to be like this massive library of like in-depth analysis on books. And we record the calls. You can watch them on replay. And at first I was kind of like, I was posting them. I'm like, is anyone even like watching these? But then people are like, oh yeah, I read this book a month after you guys. I watched all the discussions. They were awesome. So, it is a really cool space if you want to do deeper dives on books. So, yeah.
All right.
Cool. What do you got next?
Fresh off of Oprah's book club,
Yes.
I have got 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Fantastic.
Kind of probably the most well-known book out of the whole Latin American boom.
Yeah.
Seems a little silly to say this since I have translated, classic of Russian literature, but if you're looking to kind of expand into more world literature, translated stuff, something that's not from the United States, great place to start. A little bit more challenging as far as, especially with how the narrative goes and how everybody has the same name and things like that.
Yes. Might be the most challenging book that either of us have mentioned so far.
I'll change that in a minute. But again, plenty of discourse about it. Lots to dig into beyond just the book in your hands. There's certainly been books or essays written about it.
Tons.
People talking about it online, YouTube videos, whatever.
There's a television adaptation now,
Yep.
which I loved.
Yeah, we were both big fans of. So, I mean, yeah. And again, similar to East of Eden, like it was one of the first books that really drew me into like fiction in general, but also like serious literature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just a great book. Fantastic writing. Really emotionally moving book as well.
Yeah. It's very sad.
Yeah. It sounds a little, I don't know if cliche is the right word, but I know we've kind of rallied against creators in the past who just kind of say like, oh, this book destroyed me or things like that without really saying anything of substance. But there were plenty of times where like, I'd finish a chapter and it'd be a real emotional gut punch.
Yeah.
And it's the type of book that I didn't want to put down. Like I just wanted to keep reading it, but you finish a chapter where a character dies or something happened and you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That hits hard. You have to like put the book down for a minute and like sit with the emotions that you just experienced. And I think that's a marker of great literature, not just the fact that it's making you feel some kind of emotion, but it's making you feel it so strongly. You have to stop reading for a minute and process what you're feeling. Not even just like try to think about like, okay, try to reconstruct the narrative and make sure you have an idea of what's going on plot wise, but like actually feel the sadness that the book is making you feel.
Yeah. It was a pretty pivotal book for me, I would say as well. You had kind of gotten into reading literature as an adult a little bit earlier than me. I read a lot, in high school and my early college years, and then kind of pivoted more into nonfiction, history, that kind of thing. And then you were really, hyping that book up. And so I read that in maybe 2022 or 2023. And that was kind of the book that really like sucked me back into like reading literature again. So yeah, it's a great book. My next pick is also translated. It's quite short, but I do think it's a little bit more complex, and that's Heart of a Dog by Bulgakov. I know you weren't a huge fan of this book, but I think it's funny. It's approachable because it's short, which when you ramp up in more complex themes, going with something a little bit shorter can kind of temper that a little bit. There's a lot in there that's about kind of like the Russian society of the time. So that might go over your head a little bit if you're not familiar with it. But I just thought it was incredibly funny. And Bulgakov obviously is one of the kind of big names in Russian lit, more modern than a Dostoyevsky or Tolstoy. But I just really enjoyed it. And if you're looking to dip your toes into Russian literature, I think that's a good choice just because of its length. Yeah. Obviously, Dostoyevsky's got quite a few short works, but I think this is maybe a little bit more approachable than some of them.
Yeah, I would, like you said, I didn't really care for it, but I would agree with everything you said. I mean, it's certainly, if you're looking to dip your toes into more translated lit or Russian literature specifically, and you don't want to go all the way back to, the 19th century, then sure, Bulgakov.
Yeah.
Like you said, a more modern author. So
yeah. There are some like debates, people debate whenever I talk about this book, whether like Ukraine or Russia claims them.
Oh,
yeah.
See, I didn't know that. So
yeah,
there you go.
The things you'll learn getting, paying attention to the TikTok comment section of your
Yeah.
posts. Yeah. All right. What's the last book you got there, buddy?
All right. So the last book I have got is
Emoji Dick.
Emoji Dick. No, actually, I meant to bring Moby Dick. The copy I recently read also has a white cover.
They look very similar.
and
yeah.
I keep them right next to each other on the shelf. And I just grabbed this one by mistake.
Why don't you explain to our viewers what Emoji Dick is?
So I'm just going to read off the back of it.
Sure.
Emoji Dick is a crowdsourced and crowdfunded translation of Herman Melville's Moby Dick into Japanese emoticons called emoji. Each of the book's approximately 10,000 sentences has been translated 3 times by an Amazon Mechanical Turk worker. These results have been voted upon by another set of workers, and the most popular version of each sentence has been selected for inclusion in this book. In total, over 800 people spent approximately, we'll say 3.8 million seconds working to create this book. Yeah, that's boring. It's all about how much they're paid and how it was funded. But basically, it's a Moby Dick told through, Moby Dick told through emotions,
Cool.
emojis.
Nice. I didn't know emoji was a Japanese term.
The things you learn.
Things you learn.
So this is kind of interesting. I knew this was a thing. I hadn't really, I've seen it, in stores before or in a store before, and I didn't really flip through it until I had at least started reading Moby Dick.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it. I don't know if there's different editions of this, but at least this one that I have also has the text.
Yeah.
It won't pick up on the camera, but you can see, so it'll be a sentence.
Yeah. We had some debate about this in the Discord because some people thought that it was lame that there was the text.
Yeah.
And others were like, well, how else? It would just be a bunch of images. You would be
it
able
would
to
be
actually read it.
significantly shorter.
Yeah.
Too. But yeah, Moby Dick.
Yeah. Let's talk about actual Moby Dick.
Yeah. Like I was kind of saying earlier, certainly harder than any other book I've talked about today. Probably harder than any book you'll talk about other than when you mentioned Moby Dick in your recently reading recap. But again, similar to everything else, all the other books I've listed, plenty of discourse available, both professional and amateur.
Yeah.
Scholarly and hobbyist. But I think if you're gonna you read any, and I probably wouldn't start with this, but if you've read any of the books that we've talked about today and you kind of want to start working your way towards the real big heavy hitter classics, I think Moby Dick is a great place to start. Certainly a lot of complexity and references and allusions to other things, Shakespeare, the Bible, blah, blah, blah. But also, and definitely complexity of the writing, but narratively, it's at least linear. You might miss some of the bits and pieces, but the A to B of how the narrative goes is fairly easy to follow. It's a fun book.
Yeah.
And then the short chapters make it a little bit easier to kind of read 1 or 2 chapters a day, especially if it's something you're kind of struggling with. You don't have to feel like you're slogging through, 15, 20, 30 pages just to hit a stopping point. I mean, I think there's 1 or 2 chapters, at least in my edition, that were on that 20-page mark, but most of them are 5-ish pages.
If that, some of them, yeah.
Yeah. So you can kind of read a chapter a day or every couple days, whatever. And kind of a good way to start working into, I've kind of joked about it before, but some of those lit bro meme books. I mean, I felt it was certainly easier than Gravity's Rainbow.
Yeah. Definitely.
Maybe as far as difficulty, I would say similar to something like Infinite Jest. They're difficult in their own different ways.
Yeah.
And then I haven't read Ulysses, but I have to assume Moby Dick is at least still difficult, but easier than
I would say so, yeah.
Ulysses. And plus, what's great is, we were talking about, Seth and I were talking about this, you can really tell, having read this, ways that someone like Pynchon was inspired by a novel like Moby Dick.
Yeah.
So if you read this one first, you kind of have some background knowledge of at least the fiction that kind of influenced where these other authors kind of ran with it in the 20th century.
Yeah, I think that Moby Dick is challenging in kind of specific ways, and maybe not in the ways that people would think. Like you mentioned, the chapters are very short, which I think makes most books more approachable. The language is very much of its time,
Yes.
which can be challenging. And there are definitely moments where Melville is using some like just more complicated language.
Yeah.
Like it is kind of handy to have a dictionary nearby to look up some words that I'm just like, I've seen that word before, but I don't really know what it means.
Right.
I can maybe glean contextually from it, but I don't like to read that way. I like to actually know the definition of words.
Well, even certain stuff, like I remember you kind of joking about this, I think it was Seth and I, after you started reading it, like when he's talking about wearing a monkey coat.
Right.
I know what both of those words mean
Right.
individually.
Don't know what they mean together.
It's pretty easy contextually to be like, it's some kind of coat.
Right.
But like if you want to look up,
Yeah.
what exactly is this? You know, what does it look like? Or why do they
Yes.
call it that?
Yes.
That's also not super hard to find.
Yeah. It's one quick Google search.
Yeah.
But I would say it's also a little bit challenging in that there are a lot of like divergences from the main plot
Yes.
into, and then one of the big critiques I would say of people like why they didn't enjoy it is there's a lot of semantics about whaling specifically
Yeah.
that aren't really super relevant to, I would say, like the main plot, maybe more like thematically relevant.
Right.
That makes it kind of a challenging read. I think some people like hit that midpoint of the book and struggle, but
Yeah. But I think that also goes back to, and there's certainly better sources than us for like the specifics of why those types of chapters and sections matter. But I think from like a big picture, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with an author like Pynchon. Like, yeah, Melville digs a lot deeper into, the cetology and the specifics of the whaling industry. But as he's digging deeper into those specifics, the net just gets wider and wider and
Yes.
wider.
Yeah.
And then the total of things that the ideas that the book covers is that much bigger. And I think, this is a good place to start with that kind of thematic approach versus something like a Gravity's Rainbow.
Yeah, and I would say like given its influence on American literature specifically, it's a good like bang for your buck.
Absolutely.
In terms of your time and how difficult it is. So, okay, last book on my list is actually not from the 20th century. I lied. So I do have one that's modern.
Tisk.
Yep, and it's Tinkers by Paul Harding. This was his debut novel, came out in 2013, I believe. It is a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he's a New England author, so big ups. 2009, excuse me. So Tinkers is a very interesting novel. I've often referred to Paul Harding as the modern day Steinbeck, although this book is not very Steinbeck-esque in its writing. And why I put it last on my list, going kind of in order of complexity, is it's about a guy that's dying and like this dream state and flashbacks. And so it's not exactly a linear narrative, but it's some of the most beautiful writing. The prose is amazing in the book. And if you wanted to kind of tackle some of that more like narratively difficult literature, I think this is a good place to start. Again, it's quite short. You're not going to have to sit by with a dictionary, but like tying all the threads together can be a little bit challenging. But just a beautifully written book. I've also read This Other Eden by him, which is a much more approachable book, but I didn't think quite as good as Tinkers. And I have not read his second work, which is Enon, but I've heard it's quite good. So if you did want something that was a little bit more contemporary, not everyone wants to read old books. I think that's a great choice to start with. So
Totally.
you haven't read it yet, right?
Have not.
You should.
I should.
You should take that copy home with you.
I have a copy.
Oh, okay. Well, you should go home and read it.
There's a lot of books I should go home and read.
There's a lot of books. So funny. Like I just posted a video yesterday talking about a response to a response. We kind of talked about it off camera when you got here, but I mentioned like why book reviews, like single book reviews, don't perform well on BookTube.
Yeah.
And it basically just comes down to math. Like there's roughly an estimated 130 million unique books ever written and growing, obviously. And, if you read 200 books a year for 70 years of your life, you're still barely scratching the surface.
Right.
And someone commented, they're like, let's use a little common sense, bro. Like there's probably billions of books written. And it's like, dude, I don't know if you know this, but like 90% of the planet has been illiterate up until like the last 50 years. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
but there's not
Also, that
billions
doesn't
of
really
books.
change the point. Like, if
Correct.
the total number of books is greater than what you
Right.
said it as, that's only going to further the or increase the chances that you're never going to read all of them.
Right.
Which is the
Yeah.
point you were trying to make.
For sure. And someone else commented, they said, I wish I was a vampire that could live forever so I could read all the books. I'm like, yeah, well, of those 130 million,
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if 10% are worth reading.
I think our good pal Buddy is trying to do his best to read everything that's ever been written.
He's been on a roll.
I feel like every time I open Instagram, he's like posted about some new book he started.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it. I mean, I like to read more than one book at a time, but
I asked him to do some free labor for me, and he's just been blowing that off to read. So I'm not happy about it. Just kidding.
unbelievable, Buddy.
I know. What the hell, man? So yeah, any other books that you think are like honorable mentions that you want to just throw out there real quick? We don't have to do necessarily a deeper conversation on.
I mean, I haven't read any, but probably some Dickens. I would say, with the exception of Melville, really anything else any of the authors I've mentioned have written.
In general, I would say there's not really a whole lot of wrong choices.
Yeah.
I think like how you're primed to read something makes a big difference. Like if you're excited, if you see, like you said, if you see something that really piques your interest, like just go for it.
Yeah.
If you're struggling, know that that's okay. Don't be afraid to put it down and pivot to something else. Don't be afraid to push on and get through it and go, I don't really understand that.
Yeah. I would say, like you said, if you're super excited to read something, I certainly wouldn't say, if it's a book that's like more obscure and there's not a ton out there about it, something like some Krasnohorkai. Like if you're super excited to read Krasnohorkai, read Krasnohorkai.
Yeah.
But if you're like just kind of like, I want to start reading more and really go for some like good books, if it's something like that where you've seen a handful of people talking about it on Instagram but not really anywhere else, just know that if there's parts that you struggle with, it might be harder to find some answers.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not worth reading or you can't start with it. I just generally kind of like to recommend like things that you can find information on fairly easily.
Yeah.
So
I think we talked about this in one of our very, very first episodes, which was, is it worth reading difficult books?
that was our first episode.
Was that our first?
Yeah. Look at us now.
Look at us now. Nothing's changed.
Well, that's not true. I don't have a tumor anymore.
That's true. Who knows how long that thing had been in you? Did they give you any estimates?
I thought I said this when we were talking about it. The doctor told me it could have been growing for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe you're actually way smarter than you appeared to be all this
So
time.
far, it seems like things have like balanced out. Like, I don't have really any clear examples, but like,
Yeah.
some stuff, probably got better. Some things I probably got a little bit dumber. So,
Damn, I wish I had something I could blame my
it's even Steven.
stupidity on. That would be great.
Well, I mean, your heart, maybe your blood's not flowing as well as it could.
That is true. When your heart is beating at 27 beats per minute, you're probably not getting full blood flow to your brain.
But I mean, that's only been a thing for the last, 5, 6, 7 years?
The procedure that created the slow heart rate was in 2012.
Okay. So
And I didn't get the pacemaker until 2015. So
Okay.
there's 3 years of, poor blood flow to the brain. I probably lost quite a few brain cells.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, prior to 2012, do we know what explained the stupidity?
I think just being a shithead in my 20s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Your frontal lobe hadn't developed yet. That makes
I still don't think it has. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
well, cool. If you have any books that you think are a good place for people to start, please leave them in the comments. We're always looking to add to our repertoire as well for recommendations. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.